My name is Sarah. I'm 32 years old, and 6 months ago, my sister Emma made a decision that would completely shatter our family dynamic forever. She chose her college sorority sisters as her bridesmaids instead of me, her only sister. Because, and I quote, "I need people who can actually afford the dresses and won't embarrass me at my wedding." What Emma didn't know was that while she was bragging about her $45,000 teaching salary, I had just closed a real estate deal that netted me more in commission than she makes in 2 years. But here's the thing that really gets me. I had been keeping my success quiet for reasons you'll understand in a moment. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, completely underestimated by the people who should know you best, then you'll understand exactly how crushing that moment felt. But what happened next? Well, let's just say karma has a very expensive taste in Italian sports cars. Before I tell you this story, hit that like button if you've ever been underestimated, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this entire story, because the ending will blow your mind. Let me take you back to where this all started, because understanding my family dynamic is crucial to appreciating just how satisfying this revenge became. Growing up, I was always the practical sister, while Emma was the achiever. She got straight A's, was valedictorian, went to a prestigious university on a full scholarship, and became a high school English teacher. Everyone in our family treated her like she was destined for greatness, while I was seen as the one who struggled academically and would probably figure something out eventually. What they didn't understand, and what I never bothered correcting, was that I wasn't struggling. I was just bored. While Emma was memorizing Shakespeare, I was reading real estate investment books. While she was writing essays about symbolism in literature, I was studying market trends and analyzing property values. I got my real estate license at 19, straight out of high school, while Emma was still a sophomore in college. But here's where the family dynamics get complicated. Our parents, Linda and Robert, are both retired teachers. They met in a faculty lounge, bonded over lesson plans, and built their entire identity around education and honorable professions. To them, Emma choosing teaching was validation of everything they believed in. Me going into real estate? Well, that was just playing with houses until I found my real calling. I remember the exact moment I realized I needed to keep my success quiet. It was 3 years ago at Emma's graduation party when she got her master's degree in education. I had just sold my 15th property that year and was feeling proud. I mentioned to our uncle that I had earned $180,000 that year, and the entire conversation stopped. Not because they were impressed, but because they were uncomfortable. "Well," my mother said with that tight smile she gets when she's trying to be diplomatic, "money isn't everything, sweetheart. Emma is making a real difference in young people's lives." "Real estate is important too," I said, trying to defend myself. "Of course it is," my father chimed in, "but it's not exactly substantial. Teaching shapes minds. Teaching builds the future." Emma just smiled and accepted another round of congratulations while I stood there, feeling like my success was somehow dirty or less meaningful because it came with a bigger paycheck. That night, I made a decision that would define the next 3 years of my life. I would stop talking about work at family gatherings. So while Emma posted on Facebook about Teacher Appreciation Week and making a difference one student at a time, I quietly built my real estate empire. I started with residential properties, then moved into commercial real estate. I got my broker's license, opened my own agency, and began specializing in luxury properties in the prestigious Riverside district of our city. By last year, I was earning close to $400,000 annually. I owned a penthouse downtown, drove a Maserati Gran Turismo, and had a vacation home in the mountains. But at family dinners, when they asked how work was going, I'd just say, "Oh, selling houses, paying the bills." The irony wasn't lost on me that while I was closing million-dollar deals, Emma would make comments like, "Well, at least Sarah doesn't have to worry about the stress of real responsibility." Or, "It must be nice to have such a simple job." The comments stung, but I told myself I was taking the high road. I was being humble. I was keeping the peace. What I didn't realize was that I was actually enabling their dismissive attitude and setting myself up for the humiliation that was coming. Everything came to a head 6 months ago when Emma announced her engagement to her boyfriend of 4 years, Marcus. Marcus is a nice enough guy. He's an accountant, makes decent money, shares Emma's love of hiking and obscure documentaries. The proposal was sweet, the ring was beautiful, and the family was thrilled. What wasn't thrilling was what happened 2 weeks later when Emma invited me to lunch to discuss her wedding plans. We met at Café Luna, this trendy little bistro downtown that Emma loves because it makes her feel sophisticated. She ordered a salad and sparkling water. I ordered the salmon because, honestly, I'd been up since 5 a.m. showing properties, and I was starving. "So," Emma said, pulling out a perfectly organized wedding binder, "I wanted to talk to you about the wedding party." "Oh, good," I said, genuinely excited. "I was wondering when we'd discuss bridesmaids' dresses and all that." Emma's face did something strange. A quick flash of discomfort before settling into what I now recognize as her breaking bad news gently expression. "Well, that's actually what I wanted to talk about," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I've been thinking a lot about this, and I've decided to ask my sorority sisters to be my bridesmaids." I put down my fork. "Your sorority sisters?" "Rachel, Jessica, and Amanda. You remember them from college." I remembered them. Rachel worked in marketing for a pharmaceutical company. Jessica was a lawyer at a mid-sized firm, and Amanda was in finance. They were all successful, polished, and had maintained their friendship with Emma through regular girls' trips and wine nights that I was never invited to. "Okay," I said slowly. "But what about me? I'm your sister." Emma's face flushed slightly. "You'll still be in the wedding, of course. I was thinking you could do a reading during the ceremony. Something meaningful." "Emma, I'm your only sister. Your only sibling. Why wouldn't I be a bridesmaid?" This is where the conversation took a turn that still makes my blood boil when I think about it. Emma looked around the restaurant, then leaned forward and lowered her voice. "Sarah, I need you to understand something. This wedding is really important to Marcus and me. His family is, well, they're successful people. His father owns a manufacturing company. His mother is a judge. The wedding is going to be at the Riverside Country Club." The Riverside Country Club? I knew it well. I'd sold 3 properties in that neighborhood just that month. I don't understand what that has to do with— "The bridesmaid dresses are going to be expensive. Like $400 each, plus shoes, plus hair and makeup. The bachelorette party is going to be in Miami for a long weekend. I'm talking flights, hotels, dinners at nice restaurants." I stared at her. "And you think I can't afford that?" "Sarah, come on. You sell houses. I know you do okay, but let's be realistic. Rachel just got promoted to director level, Jessica made partner last year, and Amanda works for an investment firm. They can afford to do this wedding the way it deserves to be done." The words hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud. She thought I couldn't afford a $400 dress. This woman, who still lived in a rental apartment and drove a 2015 Honda Civic, thought I couldn't swing a weekend in Miami. But the worst part was what she said next. "Plus, honestly, they fit better with the image I want for my wedding. They're polished, they know how to act at formal events, they won't embarrass me in front of Marcus's family." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Embarrass you?" "You know what I mean. They went to good schools, They have professional jobs. They know which fork to use at dinner parties. This isn't meant to hurt your feelings, but this is my wedding day. I need to surround myself with people who reflect the life Marcus and I are building together. I should have said something in that moment. I should have told her exactly what I thought of her elitist attitude and her completely wrong assumptions about my financial situation. Instead, I just nodded and said, "I understand." "I knew you'd get it," Emma said, looking relieved. "You're so practical, Sarah. That's one of the things I love about you. No drama, no complications." No drama, no complications. Just the practical sister who wouldn't embarrass her at the country club. I paid for lunch, a small act of rebellion that Emma didn't even notice, and walked back to my office in a haze of hurt and anger. But as I sat in my corner office overlooking the city skyline, looking at the framed photos of properties I'd sold and awards I'd won, the hurt began transforming into something else entirely. Determination. For 3 years, I had hidden my success to keep the peace. For 3 years, I had let my family underestimate me because I thought it was noble to be humble. But Emma's words had made something crystal clear. My family's dismissive attitude wasn't about my humility. It was about their own narrow-mindedness and their need to feel superior. That afternoon, I made several decisions that would change everything. First, I accepted an invitation I'd been considering for weeks to speak at the Regional Real Estate Excellence Awards dinner. The theme was Young Professionals Changing the Game, and they wanted me to talk about building a successful independent brokerage before age 35. The dinner was scheduled for the same weekend as Emma's wedding. Second, I decided it was time to stop hiding who I had become. Over the next few weeks, as Emma's wedding planning kicked into high gear, I began subtly correcting the family narrative. When my mother mentioned that Emma was doing so well for herself, I agreed and added, "Yeah, $45,000 a year is a solid teaching salary." When my father talked about Marcus's impressive accounting position, I nodded and said, "Accountants make good money, probably around $65,000 in this market." When Emma posted on social media about finding the perfect venue at Riverside Country Club, I liked the post. After all, I'd had lunch there just the week before with a client who was purchasing a $2.3 million estate in the area. But I wasn't being obvious about it. I wasn't bragging or making grand announcements. I was just being more accurate about the reality of different career paths and income levels. Most of the family didn't pick up on it, but I could see Emma starting to notice that I seemed unusually informed about high-end venues and luxury purchases. 3 weeks before the wedding, Emma called me, sounding slightly irritated. "Sarah, Mom said you told her that my dress cost more than most people's monthly rent. Why would you say something like that?" "Because it's true," I said. "A $3,000 wedding dress is more than most people pay in rent." I wasn't criticizing it. I was just putting it in perspective. "How do you even know how much my dress cost?" "You posted about it on Instagram." "Finally found the dress at Kleinfeld's." "Looked up the designer." There was a pause. "You looked up the designer?" "Emma, I deal with luxury purchases all the time. I know how to research prices." "Luxury purchases? Sarah, you sell regular houses to regular people." I almost laughed. "Do I?" That question seemed to unsettle her, but she dropped the subject. However, I could tell the wheels were turning. Emma had always been smart, and she was starting to realize that some of my comments didn't quite align with her assumptions about my life. The breakthrough moment came 2 weeks before the wedding during a family dinner at our parents' house. Emma was there with Marcus, our Uncle David, and Aunt Patricia were visiting, and our cousin Jake had driven down from college. Emma was holding court, as usual, talking about wedding preparations and how overwhelming it was to coordinate everything. The flowers alone are costing us $4,000? She said dramatically. But Marcus says it's worth it for the most important day of our lives. $4,000 for flowers? Aunt Patricia gasped. That's so much money. I know, but everything at Riverside Country Club has to be perfect. We can't have grocery store flowers at a venue like that. Uncle David nodded knowingly. Those country club events are expensive. We looked into having Jake's graduation party at one, but the costs were just prohibitive for regular folks like us. That's when I made a comment that changed everything. Oh, Riverside isn't that bad if you know how to work with their preferred vendors, I said casually. Their flower arranger, Monica Chen, actually gives discounts to clients who book multiple services, and if you're flexible on timing, you can save about 30% on venue fees. The table went quiet. Emma stared at me. How do you know about Monica Chen? She asked slowly. I've worked with her on several client events, I said, taking a sip of wine. She's fantastic. Did the Westfield Mansion closing dinner last month? $15,000 worth of arrangements, but the client said it was worth every penny for the impression it made. What's the Westfield Mansion? Marcus asked, looking confused. And there it was, the moment I'd been unconsciously building toward for weeks. It's the property I sold in October, I said simply. 8 bedrooms, 12 acres, private lake access. Took me 14 months to find the right buyer, but it was worth the wait. Emma's face had gone pale. How much did it sell for? I pretended to think about it. Final sale price was $4, $2 million, my commission was $126,000. The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that dining room. Finally, Uncle David spoke up. Sarah, are you saying you made $126,000 on one house sale? That was a particularly good month, I said. Usually my individual commissions are more in the $20,000 to $40,000 range. But yeah, luxury properties have luxury commissions. Emma was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. What exactly do you do for work? I own Thompson Luxury Real Estate, I said. We specialize in high-end residential and commercial properties in the metro area. I've got 4 agents working under me now, plus we're expanding into property management services. The questions came rapid fire after that. How long had I owned my own company? 3 years. How many properties did I sell per year? Between 40 and 60. What was my annual income? I demurred on that one, saying, I do well enough. But Emma wasn't letting it go. After dinner, she cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping with dishes. Sarah, I need you to be honest with me. How much money do you make? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. She was wearing a cute sundress from Target, carrying a purse I recognized from DSW, standing in our parents' modest kitchen, and asking me about money like she was conducting an investigation. Why does it matter, Emma? Because I feel like I don't know you at all right now. You're talking about million-dollar properties and luxury commissions like it's normal. 3 hours ago, I thought you were struggling to pay rent. I never said I was struggling to pay rent. But you never said you weren't. You let us all think. She stopped, her face flushing. Oh my God, when I told you that you couldn't afford to be in my wedding. Yeah, I said quietly. That stung a little. Emma sank into one of the kitchen chairs. Sarah, I am so sorry. I had no idea. Why didn't you tell us? And there it was, the question I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Because every time I mentioned doing well, the conversation got awkward. I said. Remember 3 years ago when I mentioned my income at your graduation party? Mom and Dad made it clear that my success was somehow less meaningful than yours, so I stopped talking about it. But you should have corrected me when I said, When you said what, Emma? When you said I couldn't afford your wedding? When you said your sorority sisters were more polished than me? When you said I would embarrass you in front of Marcus's family? Emma's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot, I said, though my voice was still cold. You're just someone who made assumptions based on prejudice instead of getting to know your own sister. The conversation that followed was long and emotional. Emma apologized repeatedly, asked a million questions about my business, and eventually worked up the courage to ask if I wanted to be a bridesmaid after all. Emma, I said gently, your bridesmaids have already planned the bachelorette party, bought their dresses, and bonded over this experience. I'm not going to force my way into that group. But you're my sister. I am, and as your sister, I'm telling you that your original plan is fine. Rachel, Jessica, and Amanda will be beautiful bridesmaids, and you'll have wonderful memories with them. What about you? I'll be there for the ceremony. I'll do a reading, just like you suggested. But Emma, I want you to understand something. I'm not the same person who would have begged to be included 6 months ago. I'm not going to chase after acceptance from people who didn't value me in the first place. Emma cried a little more, apologized some more, and eventually asked the question I'd been waiting for. What are you going to wear to the wedding? I smiled. Something appropriate for the country club. That was 2 weeks before the wedding. Emma spent those 2 weeks trying to make up for her earlier dismissal. She invited me to lunch 3 times, asked my opinion on wedding details, and even suggested that maybe she could adjust the bridesmaid situation. But I was done trying to fit into Emma's vision of what her life should look like. I had my own life to live. The night before Emma's wedding, I got my hair and nails done at the same salon where Emma and her bridesmaids were getting ready. It wasn't intentional. I'd booked the appointment weeks earlier, but it ended up being fortuitous. I walked in, wearing jeans and a casual top, planning to get a simple manicure and a low-key hairstyle for the wedding. But when the stylist, Maria, saw me, she lit up. Sarah, I haven't seen you since the Patterson anniversary party. How are you? How's business? Really well, I said. Thanks for asking. Are you here for something special? My sister's wedding tomorrow. Oh, how exciting. Are you in the wedding party? No, just a guest. Maria raised an eyebrow. Just a guest? But you always look so stunning at events. We should do something spectacular for you. I glanced over at the bridesmaid group, Emma, Rachel, Jessica, and Amanda, who were all getting matching updos and neutral makeup. They looked beautiful, but very safe, very conventional. Actually, I said, making a spontaneous decision, let's do something elegant, but memorable. What happened next was like a scene from a movie. Maria called over 2 other stylists, and they spent the next 2 hours creating a look that was absolutely stunning. They gave me a sleek, sophisticated updo with a few artfully placed loose strands framing my face, makeup that highlighted my best features without being overdone, and nails that were classic but with a subtle sparkle. When they finished, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. I looked powerful, confident, like the successful businesswoman I had become. Emma and her bridesmaids were finishing up at the same time, and I could see them stealing glances at me in the mirror. Finally, Rachel spoke up. Sarah, you look amazing. That's such a gorgeous look. Thank you, I said simply. Where did you get your dress for tomorrow? Jessica asked. Emma showed us photos, but I couldn't tell what designer it was. It's Valentino, I said casually. The silence that followed was telling. I paid for my services, tipped generously, and left the salon feeling better than I had in months. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, sunny, 72 degrees, with a light breeze that would keep everyone comfortable during the outdoor ceremony. Riverside Country Club looked absolutely stunning, with Emma's $4,000 flowers creating a romantic backdrop for what was genuinely going to be a beautiful wedding. I took my time getting dressed that morning. The Valentino dress was a masterpiece, a midnight blue silk creation that was elegant, sophisticated, and probably cost more than Emma's entire wedding dress budget. I paired it with Louboutin heels, a Cartier watch, and a clutch from Hermès that I'd bought myself as a celebration gift after closing the Westfield mansion. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman who belonged in any room, at any event, with any group of people. Emma had been wrong about so many things, but she'd been especially wrong about thinking I would embarrass her. I drove to the wedding in my Maserati Gran Turismo, a car I'd bought 6 months earlier as a reward for my best sales year ever. It was a beautiful machine, sleek, powerful, and undeniably impressive. I'd chosen it specifically because it represented everything I'd accomplished, but also because it was subtle enough not to be ostentatious. The country club's valet parking area was busy when I arrived, with guests handing over keys to BMWs, Mercedes, and the occasional Audi. When I pulled up in the Maserati, though, I noticed the valet's eyes widen slightly. "Beautiful car, ma'am," he said as I handed over the keys. "Thank you," I said, giving him a generous tip. As I walked toward the club's entrance, I noticed several people turning to look. Some were admiring the dress, some were probably wondering who I was, and a few were undoubtedly trying to place me in the context of Emma's wedding. The ceremony was beautiful. Emma looked radiant in her $3,000 dress. Marcus looked handsome and nervous, and the setting was absolutely perfect. When it came time for my reading, I stood up and delivered a piece about love, commitment, and the importance of truly knowing and accepting your partner. My voice was clear, confident, and strong. After the reading, as I walked back to my seat, I caught sight of Emma's face. She was looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Pride mixed with something that might have been awe. For the first time in our lives, I got the sense that Emma was seeing me as someone to admire rather than someone to protect or manage. But the real moment of truth came during the cocktail hour. Emma's bridesmaids, Rachel, Jessica, and Amanda, had been polite but distant during the pre-ceremony photos. They'd complimented my dress and made small talk, but there was definitely an undercurrent of, who is this person and why is she getting so much attention? During cocktails, I was standing near the bar when I overheard Rachel talking to Jessica. "I still can't figure out what Emma's sister does for work," Rachel was saying. "She's obviously got money. That dress is definitely designer. And did you see her shoes? Those are Louboutins." "Maybe she married well?" Jessica suggested. "No, Emma said she's single, and she drives herself here." Amanda joined the conversation. "What kind of car does she drive?" "I don't know, but the valet guys seem impressed by something." That's when Marcus's cousin Tom, who had been standing nearby, chimed in. "The Maserati? That's Sarah's car. I saw her get out of it when I was arriving." All three women turned to look at him. "Sarah drives a Maserati?" Rachel asked. "Gran Turismo," Tom confirmed. "Beautiful car. Probably runs about $150,000 new." I watched the three women exchange glances, their assumptions about me clearly being recalibrated in real time. But the conversation that really mattered happened about an hour later, when Emma pulled me aside. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." "Okay. Are you upset about the bridesmaid situation? Because watching you today, seeing how you carry yourself, how people respond to you, I'm starting to realize I made a huge mistake." I considered her question carefully. "I was hurt initially," I said, "but I'm not upset anymore. Why not? Because your decision taught me something important about boundaries and self-respect. You chose people based on assumptions about money and status. That's your right, but it's also information about what you value. Emma's face crumpled slightly. I don't value money and status over you. Maybe not consciously, I said gently, but your actions suggested otherwise. What can I do to fix this? Nothing, I said. There's nothing to fix. You made the best decision you could with the information you had. Your bridesmaids are lovely women who fit the vision you had for your wedding. That's exactly what you wanted. But what about us? What about our relationship? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. She was beautiful in her wedding dress, surrounded by everything she'd dreamed of, married to a man who adored her. But there was something in her eyes that looked like loss. Our relationship is fine, I said. But it's different now. I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not anymore, and I'm not going to minimize my success to make other people comfortable. I don't want you to do that. Good. But Emma, I also need you to understand that the way you treated me was based on prejudice and assumptions. You decided that real estate wasn't a real profession, that I wasn't sophisticated enough for your wedding, and that I couldn't afford to participate in your vision. Those weren't facts. They were judgments. Emma was quiet for a long moment. You're right, she said finally. I was a snob, and I was wrong. I forgive you, I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means I'm not going to let your mistakes define our future, but I'm also not going to pretend they didn't happen. The reception that followed was genuinely lovely. Emma and Marcus looked happy, the food was delicious, and the dancing was fun. I chatted with relatives, made polite conversation with Emma's friends, and genuinely enjoyed celebrating my sister's happiness. But the most satisfying moment came near the end of the evening, when Rachel approached me at the bar. Sarah, I hope you don't mind me asking, but what do you do for work? Emma mentioned real estate, but I own a luxury real estate company, I said simply. Really? What kind of properties do you handle? High-end residential and commercial, mostly in the $500,000 to $5 million range. Rachel's eyes widened. Wow, that's really impressive. Thank you. I have to ask, and please don't take this the wrong way, but when Emma was explaining why she chose us as bridesmaids, she mentioned that you might not be able to afford the expenses? I looked at Rachel, really looked at her. She seemed genuinely confused and slightly embarrassed. Emma made assumptions about my financial situation that weren't accurate, I said diplomatically. But why didn't you correct her? Because I shouldn't have to prove my worth to be included in my sister's wedding. That comment seemed to hit Rachel hard. Her face flushed, and she looked down at her drink. You're absolutely right, she said quietly. I'm sorry. We assumed. I know what you assumed, and I understand why. But assumptions can be dangerous, especially when they're about people you care about. Rachel nodded, looking genuinely ashamed. For what it's worth, you would have been a beautiful bridesmaid. Thank you, I said, but I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. That was 6 months ago, and the changes in my family dynamic have been profound and lasting. Emma and I have rebuilt our relationship, but it's different now, more honest, more equal, and based on mutual respect rather than old patterns of protection and assumption. She asks about my work with genuine interest, celebrates my successes, and has stopped making comments about my simple job or lack of real responsibility. More importantly, she's learned to question her own assumptions about success and worth. Last month, when her friend complained about her husband's dead-end job as an electrician, Emma was quick to point out that skilled tradespeople often earn more than college graduates and provide essential services to society. My parents took longer to adjust to the new reality, but they've come around. My father now asks detailed questions about real estate trends and market conditions, treating me like the expert I am. My mother has started referring to me as an entrepreneur when she talks to her friends, with obvious pride in her voice. The most significant change, though, has been in how I see myself and my place in the world. For years, I had allowed my family's narrow definition of success to make me feel ashamed of my achievements. I had hidden my prosperity, minimized my accomplishments, and apologized for taking up space in rooms where I absolutely belonged. Emma's wedding was a turning point because it forced me to confront the cost of that strategy. By trying to make everyone else comfortable with their assumptions about me, I had made myself smaller. I had traded my authentic self for a version that fit their expectations. But here's what I learned. When you hide who you are to make other people comfortable, you don't actually make them comfortable. You make them ignorant. And ignorant people make hurtful decisions based on incomplete information. If Emma had known who I really was, she never would have made those comments about affordability and embarrassment. If my parents had understood my success, they wouldn't have dismissed my career as unimportant. If I had been honest about my life from the beginning, none of the pain and confusion of the past few years would have been necessary. Today, I live my life openly and authentically. I drive my Maserati without apologizing for it. I talk about my business achievements with pride. I wear designer clothes because I can afford them and I enjoy them. I own my success instead of hiding from it. But I also learned something else important. Success isn't just about money or material possessions. It's about building a life that reflects your values, contributes to your community, and allows you to be authentically yourself. My real estate business isn't just about commissions and luxury properties. It's about helping families find homes, assisting investors in building wealth, and contributing to the economic development of my city. I employ 4 people who depend on me for their livelihoods. I mentor young agents who are starting their careers. I donate to local charities and sponsor community events. Emma was right that teaching shapes minds and builds the future. But what she didn't understand was that business success can also serve important purposes, creating jobs, facilitating dreams, and contributing to economic growth. The difference is that I no longer need her to understand or validate my choices. I know my worth, and I don't require anyone else's approval to feel good about my life. As for Emma, she's genuinely happy in her marriage and thriving in her teaching career. She and Marcus are saving for a house, and when they're ready to buy, they've already asked me to be their agent. Rachel, Jessica, and Amanda have all become friendly acquaintances who respect what I've built and often ask for real estate advice. The wedding photos from that day tell an interesting story. In the formal portraits, Emma's bridesmaids look beautiful and polished, exactly as she had envisioned. But in the candid shots from the reception, there's a photo of Emma and me laughing together that captures something different. 2 sisters who finally see each other clearly. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted Emma earlier? Or would you have let the assumptions continue? Have you ever been underestimated by people who should have known you better? If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, I want you to know that your worth isn't determined by other people's ability to see it. You don't have to minimize yourself to fit into someone else's vision of who you should be. Live authentically, own your success, and surround yourself with people who celebrate rather than diminish your achievements. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family drama, personal growth, and finding your authentic self. Let me know in the comments, Have you ever been underestimated by family members? How did you handle it? And remember, you are worthy of respect, recognition, and celebration exactly as you are. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.